Schwintech? Schwintech. Anyway, Schwintech slides. Have you ever wondered how your Schwintech slide system works? Well, we're going to go over that today and talk a little bit about how it's designed, how it's installed, and how it actually works. Now, we're not going to go into a bunch of troubleshooting and stuff like that. I'll leave a link down in the description of a video that you can go to. There's a technician who spends about an hour talking about how to troubleshoot every aspect of a Schwintech slide system. Today, we're going to go over how it actually operates and different parts and mechanisms so that you understand how the system is set up and what it does with each of the components. Now, with this type of slide out system, you have rails on the outside of your slide out, one at the top and one down at the bottom. What those are for are guides. They mount to the side of the slide out, and there's motors on the inside that turn little gears that pulls this outside looking gear right up here in and then back out, depending on the direction you want the slide out to go by turning the motor one direction or the other direction. Now, for the motor to be connected to these rails, they have to be stored in some place, right? So if you look right up here, you'll see where the rail is that's going inside of the seal. If you look behind the seal, you'll see the motor itself. The motor has a gear on it, and that gear runs along this rail to pull it in and out, just like we said a minute ago. But also we have the rail on the bottom. So how do we get the bottom rail to be connected to a gear also? Well, the way that works is that the gear on the top that's connected to the motor has a rod connected to the end of all of that goes down to a gear at the bottom, and those two turn together. That pushes your slide out and then pulls it back in depending on the direction that you pull it. Now, to get your slide out or back in, you're going to push the extend or the retract button on your control panel to send it out or to bring it back. But when you do that, how is it controlling those motors? So that brings us around to the next part of the system. There's an electronic controller that controls both of the motors. Yes, there's two motors, one on each side. So like we said before, you got the gear track, you got the gear at the top, and then the gear at the bottom, and then the motor to drive it. So that means that there's a motor on one side of the slide out and a motor on the other. So there's two motors and one controller, and then you got your extend and your retract button. When you push the extend and the retract button, you're going to tell the controller to tell the motors to come in to go out. Now, why is it so important to have that controller? Well, that's because the controller serves many different purposes. Not only to tell the motors which direction to go, but it also tells the motors to work together at the same time. Also, as it's detecting movement, it's also going to make sure that when the slide out's going in and out, that it is going in the right direction at the same time on both sides and keeping all that together. Also, what that controller is going to do is going to make sure that the system stays safe, that it protects itself. So if there's any binding or anything like that, it's going to shut down that motor on either side or both at the same time. Also, if it sees low voltage or high voltage or anything like that, it's also going to shut down the system so that it doesn't damage itself any further or any of the slide out itself. Now, I said I wasn't going to go into a whole lot of troubleshooting, but there is some minor troubleshooting that you can do yourself. If you look on the controller itself, you'll see a green light, a red light, and then a button. On the front of the controller, you'll see this on yours. On the front of the controller, you'll see a little diagram on there that tells you what each of the lights mean and what the button does. Each of the lights will tell you or signify whether something's wrong or if everything is okay. You just look at the front of the panel, you look at the number, you look at the color of the light, the red or the green, and depending on how many times it's blinking, it'll tell you what's wrong with the system or, in turn, if everything is okay. Now, to answer just a few questions about how the slide out works and how to operate it. It does operate off of 12 volt. That means the battery that's connected to your RV. So you don't have to be plugged up to shore power for it to run or for it to work. Now, if your battery's dead or you don't have it hooked up or you got the disconnect turned off or whatever, if there's no 12 volt power going to your RV, then the slide out's not going to work. So make sure that everything's charged up and ready to go, because also you'll see on the controller that it also says low voltage. So if there's not enough 12 volt power going to your controller, it's not going to operate either. So when you push retract or extend, depending on which way you want your slide out to go, when you push that, the controller is going to see the command and it's going to tell the motor to start to move. If you look in the manual, you're going to see that it's highly recommended that when the slide out gets to its full distance, so if you're sending it out, right, you want the slide out to go all the way out, and then when it stops, that you should hold the button for at least 5 seconds after the slide out has stopped. As we said before, the controller controls both motors simultaneously so that it makes sure that it stays in tune with each other or keeps going at the same time. So if you hold it for the extra 5 seconds, what that is doing is it's resyncing everything to make sure that the system is zeroed out and it knows that the next time that it needs to move, that everything is working together at the same time. So as long as everything's going good with your slide out, everything will move in and out like it's supposed to with no issue. Now, that goes to another problem that I had personally ran into. I hope and pray that none of you run into it, but we had an issue where our slide out on the RV before this one was actually going in crooked. Every time we went to close it, the slide out would come in and one side would move and the other side would start to move, but then it would stop and the slide out would just be all kinds of crooked. So at that point, we went to the controller and we looked at the diagnostics to see what was going on, and we saw that it was telling the motor on the right side, or we were staring right at the slide out, and it was the one on the right, that motor was stopping. It didn't really say why at first. Well, we didn't know that it was saying anything at first, but we got to look into it deeper and find out that the motor was actually binding up. So we thought there was an actual defect with the motor. So we called up Lippert and we asked him, I said, hey, what do you think is going on here? And they fed back and said, what did the controller say? We said that one motor was cutting off. And they said, well, we're not really sure without digging into a whole lot more information, but we think that the motor is bad. So we took the camper back to the RV dealer, and the dealer said that the manufacturer forgot to grease the slides, that everything on the seals was sticking, so they had to oil that down. That would fix everything. So they sent it back to us, and we went to go camping, and it all messed up again. Went back to the controller and we found that we had the same error codes as before. So we took it back to the dealer to find out what was going on, and to come to find out that the actual frame around the RV that holds the slide out in position had actually broken. So in this case, it was no failure of the slide out system itself or the Schwintech motors and the gears and all that stuff. Nothing wrong there. It was an actual problem or defect with the camper itself. But nevertheless, the controller did tell us what was going on in respect to what it was trying to do and what it was not able to accomplish. So it did work. It gave us some information to work with. And if you have any issues, it'll do the same for you. So at least if you call the technician, you'll have some information to be able to give them. Now, as far as where my controller is located, it's actually right underneath my slide out. So as my slide out comes into the camper, if I look right underneath of it, I can see where the controller is located. To get under there and actually see what's going on, I have to climb over the top of the bed and lay down on the floor so that I can get to it and use a flashlight so that I can see what's going on. But nevertheless, it's there to give me the information. It's probably located in a different place for you, or maybe it's in the same place as mine. I don't really know, but you'll have to find out where your controller is. And if you don't know, then call your dealer and ask them where the controller may be located inside of your RV so that you always know just in case you need it. So like I said in the beginning of the video, there is a technician who goes through about an hour's worth of a video that can go wrong with your Schwintech slide system and how to diagnose it and how to troubleshoot it so that you can try to see if you can repair it or if you need to take it back to a dealer and they need to repair it. But either way, all the information's in that video. It's about an hour long, so you can go through and you can pick whatever you need out of it so that you get the information that you need. And I'll leave the link to that description down below so that you can get to it if you need it. I pray that you don't, but just in case you do, it'll be down there for you if you need that. So I hope the video was informative, and until the next time, enjoy your slide outs, enjoy your RV trips, and until the next time, God bless. So I got this new gimbal. I'm trying to work it. Man, I tell you what, I need to do some exercising because this thing is hard to hold. This thing is heavy. Really heavy. All right, maybe I need to quit complaining. I love the gimbal, but it is heavy. Okay, I'll do the suck it up buttercup. Get over it. Enjoy it. Have fun with it. Schwintech slide out.